Our trip started out with going to the Fort Myers airport for the first leg of our trip. We then flew to Newark International Airport to catch our flight to Munich, Germany. I will have to say that we did not get much sleep on the flight, but did have extra leg room, which was nice. Seats were still very uncomfortable. We arrived in Munich, cleared customs, and took a very long walk to the rental car counter. We picked our car and loaded it with all of our things, 2 checked bags and 4 carry-on bags. Then I noticed that it was a diesel car and was not sure that I wanted it, but checked the other cars and they were all diesel. Later found out that diesel was cheaper. Then we found out that the car had all kinds of gadget and safety warnings. This took the entire 2 weeks to start to know what it could do. We had difficulty putting in our first destination, but finally got it in and we were on our way to Nuremberg.
when we get to the hotel, I can text you and we
I visited Nuremberg in the early 70s, and Thu was there in the early 80s. I also spent one summer camp with the National Guard of South Carolina in 1981 in Firth, which was right outside of Nuremberg. The car navigation system took us right to our hotel, so the first road trip was completed, with minimal issues. It took me about 2 days of driving, to feel comfortable driving, and getting used to the car. I first thought that I was going to have to take the car back, because of engine problems that happened in city driving. Later, realized that it was okay, it was just the driver who didn't know to hold his foot on the brake. The engine shuts off when stopped at lights, and comes back on when lifting your foot off the brake, my first experience with this. We checked into our hotel, the Smile Hotel, which was right next to the old walled city, close to the railway station and had parking. It was a very nice roomy hotel, with excellent breakfast. The first thing we did was walk to the railway station, to see how long it took and could we find it because we would catch a train first thing the next morning for Berlin. We then took in the sights of the old city, and had our first meal in Germany. It was of course much cooler, cold, than what we were used to in Florida. Many of the streets were closed to traffic and was very pedestrian friendly. Because we were tired, exhausted, from the trip over and were getting up early the next day, we did call it an early day, even though it was extremely long. Started early, but not as early as it could have been. One of the reasons we went to Nuremberg first, was so we could catch the train, that started in Munich, at a later time. But it was still before the hotel served breakfast. Luckily the train had a food car, plus the train station had food, and all was well. We found our track and even figured out where our car would stop, which it did, so we could easily board the train. Their trains, Straßenbahns, and buses were great and always on time. Ours was an express train, and will reach speeds of just under 300 kilometers per hour, 186 miles per hour. It was a very smooth ride and very enjoyable. We got to see lots of countryside as we quickly passed by. When we arrived in Berlin, our first goal was to go to the TV tower and view Berlin from above. We took a taxi from the train station to the tower because we thought it would be too far to walk, and we were right. COVID restrictions made this much more difficult than it could have been, but I guess necessary. They limited how many could go up at a time, so we had to wait until those who got there before us left. This cost us about an hour, but we meet several interesting people in the line with us. When we got up to the top of the tower, we took our time identifying as many buildings as we could. I was able to locate 2 of the landmarks we were going to next.
I'm getting that building in there too.
The Berlin. What they? Yeah, I thought it was something that they called the Berlin Dome.
When we left the TV tower, we again took a taxi to our next location. When I was in Germany in the early 70s, we were discouraged to travel to Berlin, so this was my first time in Berlin, 2 seconds. So, our next stop was Checkpoint Charlie, which was still in the middle of the street, and there were many there to see it. It was not very far from what remained of the Berlin Wall. Standing next to both of them, you could just feel the history. In 1981, with my National Guard unit, we visited the border between Czechoslovakia and West Germany, which was a very sobering view to take in. Thu was able to visit Berlin in the early 80s, so saw the wall before it was tore down. So, both of us were able to revisit history. The Brandenburg Gate is one of Berlin's most important monuments, a landmark, and symbol all in one with over 200 years of history. A former symbol of the divided city, it drew visitors who used to climb an observation platform in order to get a glimpse of the world behind the Iron Curtain, on the other side of the barren death strip which separated East from West Berlin, geographically and politically. It was here that on June 12, 1987, Ronald Reagan issued his stern command to his Cold War adversary, admonishing him with the words,
"Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall."
when Germany was reunified following the fall of the Berlin Wall in November 1989. The Brandenburg Gate quickly reinvented itself into the new Berlin's symbol of unity. Now it was time to find us something for lunch. We found a nice restaurant that was on the way to our next stop. Currywurst was supposed to be one of their specialties, so that was what I had. It was fantastic. Thu had a salad which she enjoyed. From there we continued on our walk to the next site. From there we continued to head towards the train station. This took us past many of their government buildings, and near where Angela Merkel's residence was. In fact, as we were in front of their parliament building, a helicopter flew in, and landed near her residence. We wondered if it might be picking her up to take her to the airport for her trip to the G20 meeting in Rome. We continued on our journey to the train station where we had a snack and enjoyed watching the trains. Our train arrived on time, and we left for return to Nuremberg.